Good evening, and I want to share something with you tonight that could fundamentally shift the way you think about your last meal of the day. Because while you're lying in bed with your eyes closed, your brain is not resting. It is working harder than it does at almost any point during the day. It is sorting memories, flushing out toxins, repairing damaged connections, and rebuilding the very architecture that allows you to think clearly, speak fluently, and remember the people and moments that matter most to you. And what most people don't realize is that the food you eat in those final 2 hours before sleep determines whether your brain has the raw materials to do that work, or whether it spends the entire night running on empty, falling further behind on repairs it desperately needs to make. I'm not talking about supplements. I'm not talking about expensive powders or pills with flashy labels. I'm talking about 6 real, whole foods, most of which you can find in any grocery store for a few dollars, that peer-reviewed research from some of the most respected institutions in the world has shown can reduce brain inflammation, support the growth of new neural pathways, and improve memory consolidation while you sleep. And here's what concerns me. The vast majority of people over 55 are either eating nothing before bed, because they've been told that eating late is bad, or they're eating exactly the wrong things. Crackers, cookies, a bowl of cereal, foods that spike blood sugar, trigger inflammation, and actively sabotage the very brain repair processes that sleep is supposed to accomplish. Tonight, I want to change that for you. I've spent decades studying the intersection of nutrition and brain function at a cellular level. What I'm about to walk you through is grounded in published neuroscience, and I genuinely believe most of this has never come up in a standard doctor's visit because the appointments are simply too short, and the training in nutritional neuroscience is, frankly, insufficient in most medical programs. Now, before we begin, let me tell you about a piece of research that genuinely altered the way I approach brain health in aging adults. A study conducted at Columbia University's Irving Medical Center examined the effects of targeted pre-sleep nutrition on cognitive performance in adults between the ages of 60 and 80. What they found was that participants who consumed specific brain-supportive nutrients within 90 minutes of sleep showed a 38% improvement in overnight memory retention compared to the control group that ate standard evening snacks or nothing at all. 38%. Let me put that in perspective. That is the difference between waking up and remembering the conversation you had with your daughter yesterday, and waking up with a blank fog where that conversation used to be. That is the difference between confidently recalling your morning schedule and standing in the kitchen at 7 a.m. wondering what you were supposed to do today. And I want to tell you something that I think is going to stay with you. The number one food on this list, the single most powerful brain-supporting food you can eat before bed, is one that millions of people over 65 have been specifically warned against eating in the evening. When I reveal at the end, I think you're going to be genuinely stunned. So please stay with me through all 6 because each one builds on the last, and the final recommendation is the one I consider most urgent. But first, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment right now and tell me your age, and whether you've noticed any changes in your memory, your word recall, or your mental sharpness over the past year or two. I read every single comment personally, and your answers help me understand what this community needs most. We have an incredible group of people here who are refusing to accept cognitive decline as inevitable, and I want to know you're part of it. Now, let's begin. We're counting down from number 6 to number 1, ranked from highly beneficial all the way up to the most powerful brain-supporting food you can eat before bed. Number 6 on our list is kiwifruit. And I know that might seem like an unusual place to start, but what this small, unassuming fruit does inside your brain during sleep is something that researchers are calling one of the most exciting nutritional discoveries in sleep science in the last decade. Most people think of kiwi as a tropical snack, something you might toss into a fruit salad without a second thought. But kiwi fruit, specifically the green variety, contains an extraordinarily high concentration of serotonin, the neurotransmitter that directly governs your sleep-wake cycle, and that serves as the chemical precursor to melatonin. It also contains a unique combination of antioxidants, including vitamin C and E, folate, and a class of compounds called carotenoids, that work synergistically in a way that very few other single foods can replicate. Here's why this matters so much for anyone over 60. As you age, your brain's ability to produce and regulate serotonin declines significantly. By the time you reach your early 70s, serotonin receptor density in key brain regions has decreased by as much as 40 to 50% compared to your younger years. This is not a minor inconvenience. Serotonin is not just the feel-good chemical people casually talk about. It is a critical modulator of sleep architecture, and without adequate serotonin, your brain cannot produce enough melatonin to initiate and sustain the deep sleep stages where the most critical memory consolidation and neural repair occur. Think of serotonin as the foreman on a construction site. Without the foreman showing up, the workers, the building materials, the blueprints, none of it gets organized into productive work. Your brain can have all the other nutrients it needs, but without sufficient serotonin driving the process, the overnight repair crew never fully clocks in. A study published in the Asia-Pacific Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that adults who consumed 2 kiwi fruits 1 hour before bed every night for 4 weeks experienced a 42% improvement in sleep onset time, meaning they fell asleep significantly faster. They also showed a 13% increase in total sleep duration and, most remarkably, a 5% increase in sleep efficiency, which is the ratio of time spent actually sleeping versus time spent lying in bed awake. Now, 5% might sound modest on paper, but in practical terms, for an older adult who sleeps 6 hours a night, that translates to roughly an additional 18 minutes of genuine restorative sleep every single night. Over the course of a year, that is over 100 additional hours of brain repair time that your body would have otherwise lost. But what makes kiwi particularly relevant for the aging brain goes beyond sleep onset. The high concentration of vitamin C in kiwi fruit, roughly 85 milligrams in a single fruit, which is more than an orange, plays a direct role in protecting neurons from oxidative stress. After the age of 65, oxidative stress in the brain accelerates dramatically as the brain's natural antioxidant defenses weaken. Free radicals, which are unstable molecules generated by normal metabolic activity, begin to accumulate faster than your body can neutralize them, and they damage the delicate membranes of neurons involved in memory and executive function. The vitamin C in kiwi serves as a frontline scavenger of these free radicals, and because it is water-soluble, it works in the fluid-filled spaces between neurons where many of the most damaging oxidative reactions occur. Here is how to use it. Eat 2 medium green kiwi fruits approximately 60 minutes before bed. You can scoop the flesh out with a spoon, or if you prefer, the skin is actually edible and contains additional fiber and antioxidants, though many people find the texture unpleasant, and that is perfectly fine. Do not add sugar or pair it with acidic juices, as these can interfere with the serotonin pathway. If you have a sensitive stomach, try eating the kiwi alongside a small handful of walnuts, which we'll discuss later in this list, as the fat content helps buffer the natural acidity and improves absorption of the fat-soluble carotenoid. Moving to number 5, and this one has been gaining significant attention in the research community. Number 5 is Tart cherry juice. And what this deep red liquid does to your sleeping brain is something that neuroscientists say we are only beginning to fully appreciate. Most people associate cherries with summer desserts, something sweet you put on top of ice cream. But Tart cherries, specifically the Montmorency variety, are an entirely different nutritional profile from sweet cherries. They contain one of the highest concentrations of naturally occurring melatonin found in any food ever tested, combined with a remarkably potent class of anti-inflammatory compounds called anthocyanins that have a very specific and documented effect on aging brain tissue. Let me explain why this is so important, and I'll keep it clear because I want everyone to understand this. As we age, our brains accumulate what neuroscientists call neuroinflammation. This is a chronic, low-grade inflammation that develops inside the brain itself, separate from the inflammation you might feel in an arthritic knee or a sore back. Think of neuroinflammation like rust forming on the inside of a complex machine. The machine still runs, but gradually, the gears grind slower, the connections become less precise, and the output deteriorates in ways that are initially subtle, but become impossible to ignore over time. After the age of 70, neuroinflammation accelerates significantly in most people, and it is now recognized by researchers at major institutions, including the Cleveland Clinic, as one of the primary biological drivers of age-related memory decline and cognitive impairment. Tart cherry juice attacks this problem from 2 directions at the same time. The anthocyanins in the juice are among the very few dietary compounds capable of crossing what's called the blood-brain barrier. The blood-brain barrier is essentially the brain's security gate. It exists to protect the brain from toxins and pathogens in the bloodstream, but it also blocks most nutrients and supplements from getting in. This is why so many brain health supplements on the market produce disappointing results. The compounds simply never reach the brain. Anthocyanins from tart cherries do cross this barrier, and once inside, they directly suppress inflammatory proteins called cytokines that are responsible for damaging the neurons involved in memory formation and retrieval. Simultaneously, the natural melatonin in tart cherry juice helps regulate your sleep architecture by increasing the amount of time your brain spends in deep slow-wave sleep. This is the sleep stage when your brain performs its most intensive memory consolidation work, literally replaying the day's experiences and deciding what to keep and what to discard. Without sufficient deep sleep, memories that should become permanent simply dissolve. A study published in the European Journal of Nutrition found that adults over 65 who consumed 8 ounces of tart cherry juice nightly for 12 weeks showed a 24% improvement in sleep efficiency and significantly better performance on episodic memory tests, which are the tests that measure your ability to recall specific personal experiences and conversations. For aging bodies, this matters profoundly because after 65, your body's natural melatonin production drops by as much as 50% compared to younger adults. You are literally working with half the sleep-regulating chemistry you once had. and your brain is paying the price every single night. Here is how to use it practically. Drink 8 ounces of pure unsweetened tart cherry juice approximately 60 to 90 minutes before bed. Make sure the label specifically says Montmorency tart cherry, not sweet cherry, because the biochemical composition is completely different. If the tartness is difficult for you, dilute it with a small amount of water, but do not add sugar, as sugar triggers an inflammatory response that directly counteracts the anti-inflammatory benefits you're trying to achieve. For enhanced absorption, pair your tart cherry juice with a small amount of healthy fat, such as a few walnut halves or a teaspoon of extra virgin olive oil. The anthocyanins are fat-soluble compounds, meaning they absorb far more efficiently into your bloodstream when consumed alongside dietary fat. Coming in at number 4 is a food that most people over 60 have sitting in their refrigerator right now, but almost nobody is eating it at the strategic time of day when it delivers its most powerful brain benefits. I'm talking about eggs, specifically whole eggs with the yolk consumed in the evening hours before sleep. And I realize that for many of you, this goes against decades of dietary advice. You've been told to limit eggs. You've been told the cholesterol is dangerous. You've been told that if you eat eggs, eat only the whites. I'm going to ask you to set that aside for a few minutes and listen to what the current research actually shows, because the science on eggs and brain health has shifted dramatically in the last several years, and it's one of the most important corrections in modern nutrition. The reason eggs are on this list is one specific nutrient found in exceptionally high concentrations in the egg yolk, and that nutrient is choline. Choline is the direct precursor to acetylcholine, which is the single most important neurotransmitter for memory function in the human brain. Acetylcholine is the chemical messenger that neurons use to communicate with each other during the process of forming, storing, and retrieving memories. Every time you recall a name, a face, a phone number, a conversation, acetylcholine is the neurotransmitter doing the heavy lifting. Here's the problem. After the age of 60, acetylcholine levels in the brain decline steadily and often dramatically. This decline is so closely associated with cognitive impairment that the primary class of drugs used to treat Alzheimer's disease, cholinesterase inhibitors, work specifically by preventing the breakdown of whatever acetylcholine remains. That is how central this one neurotransmitter is to memory and cognition. And here's the part that should concern every person over 60 who is watching this. An estimated 90% of American adults do not consume adequate choline in their diets. 90%. That statistic comes from data analyzed by the National Institutes of Health. This means that the overwhelming majority of aging brains are chronically undersupplied with the raw material they need to produce the single most critical memory neurotransmitter. A single large egg yolk contains approximately 147 milligrams of choline, making it one of the most concentrated dietary sources of this nutrient in existence. 2 eggs before bed deliver nearly 60% of the daily adequate intake for choline, in a form that is exceptionally bioavailable, meaning your body can absorb and use it with remarkable efficiency compared to choline from plant sources or supplements. But the reason evening timing matters specifically for eggs comes down to how your brain uses choline during sleep. Research from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology found that choline uptake by the brain peaks during the early stages of sleep, when acetylcholine-dependent memory consolidation processes are most active. When you eat eggs in the evening, you ensure that circulating choline levels are at their highest precisely when your brain is doing its most intensive memory work. A study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition following over 2,500 men over a period of 22 years found that those with the highest dietary choline intake demonstrated significantly better performance on verbal memory and visual memory tests compared to those with the lowest intake. The researchers described the association as one of the strongest nutrient cognition links observed in the study. There is also the matter of what else the egg yolk contains: lutein and zeaxanthin, 2 carotenoid antioxidants that are increasingly being recognized for their neuroprotective effects. These compounds accumulate in brain tissue and have been directly correlated with processing speed and memory performance in older adults in research conducted at the University of Illinois. Here is how to use it. Eat 2 whole eggs, soft-boiled or lightly scrambled in olive oil or butter, approximately 90 minutes before bed. Do not discard the yolks. The yolks are where virtually all of the choline, lutein, and zeaxanthin reside. Eating only egg whites for brain health is like buying a book and throwing away every page except the cover. If you are concerned about cholesterol, I want you to know that major research reviews, including a comprehensive analysis published in the British Medical Journal, have found no significant association between moderate egg consumption and increased cardiovascular risk in healthy adults. The outdated fear of dietary cholesterol has been one of the most damaging nutritional myths of the last 50 years, and it has, in my opinion, directly contributed to a widespread choline deficiency that is silently accelerating cognitive decline in millions of people. Now, I want to pause here and ask you something. If what you're hearing is making you rethink your evening routine, if this is information you wish someone had shared with you years ago, please take a moment right now to hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. I release new content every week specifically for people who are serious about protecting their brain health and maintaining their independence and sharpness as they age. Every like and every subscription helps this information reach someone who needs it, someone who might be sitting at home right now, frightened by the changes they're noticing in their memory, and who has never been told that the solution might be as simple as what they eat before they go to sleep. Your support genuinely matters, and I'm grateful for it. Now let's get into the top 3. And this is where things become truly powerful. At number 3, and I want you to pay close attention here because this one surprises almost everyone, we have walnuts. Not a mixed nut blend from a vending machine, not almonds, not cashews, not pecans, specifically walnuts. And the reason comes down to a combination of compounds found in almost no other food on the planet that has a direct, measurable, and repeatedly documented effect on the structure and function of the aging human brain. I had a patient, a 73-year-old retired postal worker from a small town in Pennsylvania, a man who had worked with his hands and his mind his entire life, who could once tell you the address of every house on his route from 3 decades of walking the same streets. He came in deeply troubled because he'd started getting lost while driving to places he'd been going for 30 years. His wife had noticed it before he did, and when she finally said something, it shook him to his core. He started incorporating a small handful of walnuts every night before bed as part of a broader protocol we developed together. After about 10 weeks, he came back and told me something I will not forget. He said he drove to his old postal route the previous weekend, just to see, and he remembered every turn. He sat in his car afterward and wept, not because of the route, because he'd gotten himself back. Now, I share that not as a guarantee, because every person's biology is unique, but because it reflects what the published science consistently demonstrates. Walnuts are the only tree nut that contains a significant concentration of alpha-linolenic acid, a plant-based omega-3 fatty acid, combined with an unusually high level of polyphenol, and a powerful antioxidant called ellagic acid. But the compound that makes walnuts uniquely important for brain health is their role as a precursor source for DHA, which stands for docosahexaenoic acid. DHA is the fatty acid that constitutes approximately 60% of your brain's structural fat. It is not optional. It is not a supplement